H&M South Africa has made strides collaborating with designers like Palesa Mokubung of Mnisi, Rich Mnisi, and many others. They've also challenged well-known retailers to become market leaders. In this episode, Caroline Nelson, H&M South Africa's country manager and CEO, joins me to delve into some of their success stories, collaborations with local designers, as well as what they learned from some of South Africa's leading creative minds. As part of H&M South Africa's journey, they also collaborate with influencers, and I ask her how they find the balance between their global outlook and local urban culture.
And I think our South African influencers and celebrities do it best. I think by a long shot, they're the best in the world. And they really take our fashion and take it to the next level. And that's a really cool way to do it, where you can, you still have what's in Paris, what people are looking for, but how it's worn here and how it can present it is completely different. And it's just so cool and vibrant and interesting. And that's kind of an easy way to balance a mixture of global and local.
Following the launch of H&M's offering on Superbalist, Caroline Nelson talks about some of the strategic outcomes and lessons.
The public response has been really good to us being on there, and it's helping to promote a really good store environment and vice versa, because we can drive people between both channels and hopefully find something for everyone.
To learn more about how AI is shaping the future of fashion, how H&M South Africa collaborates with creative teams, and to get insights on staying ahead in your industry, stay tuned. Welcome to the Lead Creative Podcast, where we talk to creative industry leaders, influencers, and brands. We discuss the strategies that influence brand thinking and shape industries. Thought leaders and heads of agencies let us in on some of their thinking and insights. I'm your host, Mongezi Mtati. Enjoy the show, and please share and subscribe. Caroline, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us on the Lead Creative. I'm really excited to get into this conversation.
Me too. I'm very excited to be here.
So Caroline, to start off, just thinking about your career, which spans nearly 2 decades in the fashion and lifestyle sectors, one would think that this was always your destiny. But I'm just curious, did your career take interesting twists and turns to get you to this point? Was this always where you saw yourself?
Yeah, you just made me feel very old when you said that. So thank you for that.
You've just been a trailblazer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I started at 10. I mean, to be perfectly honest, growing up, it was never my ambition to end up in the fashion space or the retail space. When I was little, I thought I was going to be a lawyer or maybe a teacher, or something that influenced people for good, if that makes sense. That's kind of the space I always thought I would end up in. But growing up in Ireland, your scope isn't as big, I would say, in terms of what you think you can do as it is here. I feel like everyone in South Africa, dreams very big, and we dream for safe jobs that'll kind of get you through life. But I never really had that thought process as soon as I started working in the workplace, if that makes sense. It changed very quickly when I realized. Yeah. So the reason I ended up in fashion retail is actually, we didn't have a lot growing up, and I always loved girls' clothes. But because my parents were just grafting to raise 4 kids on, at the beginning, quite a small salary, a lot of my clothes came from either my cousins who were boys. So they didn't look great. I remember wearing those wool jumpers that had sheep, sheep and pigs and cows, because they were farmers, wearing those, or brown tracksuits or whatever was on sale, we never got clothes because they were like pretty, and it was like whatever was on sale, and then you got one nice outfit at Christmas, for example.
No, that makes
that
makes perfect sense, and that's such a familiar story. Like
it
getting,
is.
these hand-me-downs as you grow up. Yeah,
exactly. So as soon as I got my first paycheck, I spent it all on like cool clothes. I got like a little halter neck. I'll never forget it. I bought it in purple and white. It was like a little halter neck, and it was made of this linen-y fabric, and then these high-waisted white pants. And that was the summer of so I was 15. So the summer of my 16th birthday, like that was my first paycheck. And I spent all of my money basically on clothing. So then I realized, I need to work in retail so I can get a discount, because that was like, this wasn't going to last very long.
Every 15-year-old's dream. That.
Yes, exactly. So then for the next like 3 summers, every time I got like a part-time job to earn money, I tried to work in retail, and I found that I had this, like, I just loved being on the floor. I loved the rush. I loved helping customers. I loved like just being around people in general. And then I kind of, figured out that I was good at leading people too. So that was kind of the beginning of it. Obviously there's 20 years span of what happened along that journey, but that's how it started. It was more, I liked clothes. I didn't have access to them as a kid. I got a job so I could try and get something that I never had. And then it kind of went from there. And I really never, like, even when I was doing that, I never saw myself in fashion retail or in any sort of senior leadership position. I was kind of more trying to figure out my real job. But here I am 20 years later. Thank you for the reminder.
Absolutely. When you took on this adventure to lead H&M in South Africa, what stood out to you about South African urban culture that translates to how H&M becomes part of that culture?
Yeah, this is quite interesting actually, because, most of my H&M career was actually in the States. So even though I'm from Ireland, most of my career was in the States, and I got to do little stints in other markets like South America, a little bit in Europe, a little bit opening different foreign markets. And when I came here, like, I realized quite quickly, we were still quite new here compared to what I was used to in the States. But what I realized here was like people have the same like drive and ambition, regardless of their background, to look good. Like, everybody wants to look good. I would dare to say people here want to look much better than they do in the US as a whole. I think there's a lot of pride here in like putting your best foot forward, looking stylish and fashionable. I mean, every time I go to Joburg, I'm like, I'm not dressed up enough. You have to always have heels in your handbag, but there's this like pride across all communities to look good. And I think that really translates then into the sort of brand that we are, because it does make fashion accessible to everybody. And that made it a very exciting journey for me on like, how do we then, in a country that maybe doesn't have as much as other countries, become closer to the customer by doing things that can not just help people to look really good, but also help them to feel like they're part of the brand journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you give us an overview of H&M South Africa's mission and how your recent initiatives? I'm particularly interested in those involving local designers and job creation, and how those fit into that mission of H&M South Africa.
Yeah. So, our mission here is not any different than anywhere else in the world, which is fashion and quality at the best price in a sustainable way. That's who we are as an organization. But here the model is tweaked slightly, right? The culture is different, people dress differently, and you have so much creativity, and you feel the creativity here. So it's quite important to include that creativity into the journey of the company. Otherwise, you're just another organization or another big brand. And here, our ambition is, obviously, we're a business. We want to make money. We want to have a good P&L and be successful from that point of view. And in order to do that, we need to keep growing. And that growth comes from, return customers, new customers, our existing customers spending more with us, new stores, online sales, which we launched last year. So that's quite important, obviously, as the foundation, so that we can do other things. And then the other two, areas that are quite important to us are our sustainability efforts, both from a people and environmental point of view. And then, to your point, then the local designer collaborations that we've been doing and that involvement there. And that's important because of the level of creativity here, but also the how much impact you can have on promoting local design here as a big brand, and what it can do for people when they have an opportunity to work alongside of a brand like ours. So, in 2019, we had our first local design collaboration with Palesa, with Mnisi, and that was extremely successful, and it was very well received. And on the back of that, we kind of looked and said, okay, there's a journey here to be taken as we, grow the company and the brand to help continue to promote local design here, because you can change a designer's life here just by giving them a platform that's bigger than what you usually get to do. And so that's just part of kind of the direction we've been heading in. And so far it's proved to be really great. And now we've partnered with a lot more designers over the last few years, and they've all been incredible launches. And then we've also started to do little things like, in our home store in Santon, we have local furniture that we're selling from there, or, like olive oils and teas and coffees and things, just so that wherever we can inject a little bit of local design and kind of give an entrepreneur a step up in some capacity or other, that becomes part of the journey. So it's been quite cool to integrate these things together.
Yeah, and it's been inspiring to see those come to life. And I just want to take a bit of a step back to those collaborations, because you mentioned Palesa Mokubung of Mnisi, which was a great collaboration, and it was one of the ones that really, at least to me, started this journey of really noticing what H&M is doing locally that's different to other markets. And I found that to be a really fascinating thing. And then there was one with Mnisi as well that was a really good collaboration. Can you share what happens in the background to make these collaborations come to life? If anyone is listening out there, or because we're all interested in seeing, how we can collaborate with big brands, how we can collaborate with brands, but I know that there's a designer out there who wonders how these come to be.
Yeah. So it's definitely a long process. It doesn't happen overnight, and for sure it's not an easy process for us either, because there's so many talented designers in the space here. But generally what we do is we take a look, and we look at like who's starting to have an impact. So who's making a name for themselves, who has started to kind of rise up a little bit and start to get noticed, because that's quite important for us, that we give people who already have some sort of platform already the next step, right? So we can kind of take them to the next level, because that's the beauty of having a big international brand. But alongside of that, it's about, designers who are obviously very talented, who fall in line with our style, the sort of design that we have within the organization, but also in line with our brand and where we're going. So, very high fashion is obviously quite important, but something that can be accessible to the masses too. And then once we've kind of narrowed down a short list of designers, then it's quite important for us to also get to know them. So do they as a person, are they a good fit for us as an organization in terms of like who they are, their values, our values, how can we work together? Because like I mentioned, the process isn't easy, and you want to have fun on this journey. You want people who have a similar value set as you, who really want to like make this work. And once you've kind of found the perfect pair, then the journey is so much easier, and it can be so much fun. And, we've seen that with the campaigns where you have these fantastic relationships with the designers afterwards, because of the relationship you've built during that process, because it can be incredibly fun and rewarding for all parties. So there's no magic formula for anybody who wants to come on board. But of course, as much as we'd love to get behind somebody who's just starting, that's a big leap for us to take. And I always explain that, a lot of conferences and things that you speak at or events and you meet people and they really want to do it, but you have to have kind of learned about business first a little bit yourself, before you partner in a business transaction like that, could put you out to the whole world very quickly. So there needs to be some experience behind you as well. And there are other ways with designers that we work throughout the year, for people who haven't quite reached that scale. But that's kind of the general process. And then once we have the designer picked, then the back of house journey starts, right? The design, what's the collection going to look like? Can it be made here? Do we, as much as we can, we'll try and use local resources to make things happen. And if it can't happen here, what part or what elements of it can happen here, to have the best output? And then you have, the whole creative process, of course. And then you have the campaign shooting and the marketing side of it. And that's all the fun, but that's a lot of hard work, right? And it takes time and a lot of people, to make that happen. And then ultimately, of course, the end product is that you have a collection in our stores, and we support it then with some fantastic media behind it and marketing campaigns, which is the thing that can kind of take a designer to the next level. Or if they're already extremely well known within South Africa, it can give them an even bigger platform to speak to the world.
That makes sense. So in a nutshell, what I'm getting is keep working on your brand, keep building your brand, learn the ropes. And as you learn the ropes, the paths will begin to merge.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think for me, what's so interesting, it's no different in any other country, but particularly here, I think the local design industry is very tight, and it very much people support each other. So that's the really nice thing. Like for every designer event we've had, the previous designer has attended, or because they all know each other and want to support each other and want each other to be successful. So I think, like for me, outside in, the biggest strength I see in South Africa is the network around being a designer, because that's the thing that gives you platform. People want each other to succeed. They, it's this beautiful camaraderie here. And I think that network is the thing that can also propel you to grow your brand so much more, because really everyone wants each other to be the best.
Yeah, that's a really great insight, that the sense of community really also contributes quite a lot in finding these collaborations. Following a lot of these collaborations and initiatives that you've set in place, how has the local market responded? You mentioned that they responded positively a bit earlier, but how has the response been, and what are some of the success stories that you think back to now that these collaborations have occurred and this growth has happened?
Yeah, look, there's a lot. I think it's been quite successful on both sides, obviously with us for selling, and then for the designers themselves in terms of their brand presence. And I think for me, one of the ones that I really love is when we had the Neimil collection, that was 2021. And that was a home collection. And, those guys, they're so nice. They're like, every time you meet them, it just feels like you get like a big warm hug, and I remember meeting, Kenilwe, like, maybe 6 months after the original launch in store. And I met her at some other event, and she said to me, she's like, "You made us famous." She was so excited. She was like, "You made us famous." And then she talked about like the journey that had occurred, from that like launch in store in Sandton to where they were now as a brand. And it was, sometimes when you're in roles like this, you don't always get the end user like satisfaction.
Sure.
You know, you kind of hope that it's landed really well. But that for me was something that felt so tangible and so exciting. And then that gives you the passion to keep wanting to do these sort of things locally, because you realize the impact it can have on people's lives.
If you're enjoying The Lead Creative, please share this episode with your network and hit follow or subscribe. Enjoy the show. As a global brand, H&M is loved by many people for its distinctive style and quality, which are the things that you started with alongside the sustainability element. How do you manage to localize your offerings while retaining this global outlook or this global sense of what people love about the brand?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's a fine balance. And of course, you know, because people want what they see in Paris. They want what they see in New York. And that's why they come to us. And so then you have to, that's the business model, you know, that is our main customer offer. And that's what we need to give to the customer, because that's what they're looking for. But then there are areas then you can tweak the model to make sure that we're, you know, contributing locally, supporting local, especially from the design point of view, and like, you know, making parts of our business as local as possible. And, you know, there's lots of different ways we do that. I mean, obviously we've spoken about the designer collaborations. We mentioned a little bit about the in-store collaborations that we have in our home store in Johannesburg. We also, try, like with both Rich Mnisi's collection and Yay Abe, you know, we printed everything locally. Our curvy denim, our entire curvy denim line was made for South Africa. It was designed for this market because that was something we didn't provide on a global scale, that was really needed in this market. So you tweak that segment to make sure people can find exactly what they're looking for there. And then the other way, of course, is through like social media. So using local influencers and celebrities and really integrating them into our brand journey as well, because that's where you can like show how to wear global locally.
Yes.
And I think our South African influencers and celebrities do it best. I think like by a long shot, they're the best in the world. And they really like take our fashion and take it to the next level. And that's a really cool way to do it, where you can, you still have what's in Paris, what people are looking for, but how it's worn here and how it can present it is completely different. And it's just so cool and vibrant and interesting. And that's kind of an easy way to balance a mixture of global and local.
Sure. The decision to take H&M's online offering, especially in South Africa, to Superbalist instead of launching it as H&M, I'm sure was a hugely strategic decision. Can you take us through what was behind that decision and also the lessons learned now that you are a year into this partnership?
Yeah, we're exactly a year. So you've been monitoring us closely. We're going to have an anniversary soon, so everyone can keep their eyes and ears peeled for that. No, it was a strategic decision. It's not easy to set up a local website and offer the customer exactly what you want to offer them when you want to offer to them in that journey, and while keeping your same prices, right? And logistics aren't easy generally, you know, being able to deliver in 2 days isn't easy generally. So all of these factors, you know, when you take them into consideration in the business case, it just made more sense for us to partner with somebody local. And that's not to say, you know, that it will always be that way, but this was for sure the best way for us to start and continue this journey. It's been incredibly successful. It's been great for both brands. The customer was from day one able to get things 2 days later, which is like a small miracle when it comes to launching online websites at such scale in general, which is quite cool. And they have a fantastic customer service offer. And it was fun. They were a good partner. And when you look at Superbalist, it offers the best of fashion in South Africa. So we had a place there right off the bat, and people have been really excited about it. So I think it was a great decision, and it helps to contribute massively to local business and employment.
So the South African Customer Experience Report found that there's a really good way in which reviews contribute to what's being bought a lot online. Following this opening on Superbalist, have you started seeing this sort of relationship between what happens online as Superbalist and what happens in store, and sort of how these two environments work with each other?
Yes. I'm so glad I listened to your last podcast about data and insights. So I feel like I speak well to the topic of discussion. Look, I think we found that the customer generally has been quite happy with the experience. We continue to have customers in the areas where we have stores, shop online and in store too, which is that's actually quite cool. And that's nice to have that data, right? Because the perfect situation is that you have the customer coming to see you in store, buying there, interacting with our teams, feeling, touching, getting to know their size, and then, at home thinking, "Ooh, I want to go online and shop at H&M," right? That's the ideal situation. And most of our feedback has been really good from that regards. People were very excited to join, that we joined Superbalist and were online. Of course you get feedback that, is everything available on store that's online? And you don't always have that formula perfect. But we're quite close to having almost everything at the same time right now. But there's always things out of our control here with our ports and our logistics. There's always things happening that, won't give you the perfect formula. But the public response has been really good to us being on there, and it's helping to promote a really good store environment and vice versa, because we can drive people between both channels and hopefully find something for everyone.
Yeah. I've noticed that H&M has introduced this AI-powered virtual try-on, and just looking at that, it's clear to me that technology and the space of AI is playing a very significant role now within the fashion space. How do you see AI shaping the future of fashion, and how does H&M plan to sort of stay ahead of that curve as it evolves?
Yeah, I think this is the discussion in every business in the world right now, not just in fashion, but to your point, it's particularly advantageous in the fashion industry if you can use AI to get ahead of the curve for many reasons. And, the try-on fitting room is one thing where I think, and as a company where we've put a lot of that investment is actually in the supply chain part, because AI can basically eliminate a lot of waste, right? Which massively contributes towards our sustainability goals as an organization. Because it is difficult to predict with the data that stands for now, exactly how much of something you should buy, right? And exactly how much should be manufactured. And now with 3D design, with all of AI being able to give you the data about predicting what the consumer is going to want, it can eliminate massive amounts of waste, of cost, of, shipments that don't need to ship. So that part of it is a big investment for us as an organization, as we really see that having a huge impact. And then, then you go to kind of the future of what that's going to look like, and the metaverse, and people really not needing to interact that much at all, in order to get the garment that they want. But that whole journey is huge, and every retailer needs to be in it in some capacity or other, or they will be left behind. And that's just the reality. So, it's still quite unknown to us all. But the supply chain is a huge focus. The customer experience is a huge focus in this area. And then, of course, like the ethics around using AI, that's quite important to us as an organization too, that as we use this technology, that you're part of the commitments to do it in the right way as well. So, because we don't really know what it's going to do to itself over time. But yeah, for anyone, I think in the industry right now, that's where you need to be putting your investment for the future in.
And I think that's very interesting. And I think something that comes to mind for me to ask you as somebody, who's in a leadership position, because AI, while we all sort of, at least a year in, up until a year in sort of November last year, OpenAI kind of came onto the scene and AI became a big thing, a thing on everyone's lips. But I know that we had started the virtual try-on long before that was the kind of the case. But as a leader, how do you know that one trend is going to be something significant while another not so much? You've mentioned the metaverse as one, for example, right?
Yeah.
There was Threads not too long ago. How do you know that this is a trend that we should be following and that one not so much?
I can tell you that I don't know as a leader. However, AI can tell me. So I think,
sure.
These are by no means am I an expert in AI. And I think this is the interesting thing. Like, you still need people to think about the things that we should be looking at, but then AI will be the thing to help us do it in the best way possible, right? So I don't know. I mean, there's a million different ways to look at that in terms of trends, and the old ways of figuring out trends don't disappear. People like catwalks are still there. Real designers are still there. They inspire people, and you want like people to aspire to be a fashionista in one regard or other. And those people will always set the trends. The difference is that now you can have a fashion aspirer sitting in Cape Town who can have as much influence as somebody in Paris, and AI can do that. And that's where the difference is versus in the past, that you can, the data will show you where the trends are happening, how they're happening, when they're happening, who is creating them. And that's very different from just using the traditional channels before, which told us X designer designed this collection. We think it's going to be great next year. This is what you should design. The input is much greater now than historically.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that part about the input being much greater is a really great point, because that's what we are seeing time and time again. So as an outsider looking in, H&M does a lot of its creative work in-house. Can you tell me a bit about how you collaborate with external agencies, external creative teams, and what that process kind of looks like, especially seeing as, like I'm saying, looking from the outside in, it looks like there's a lot of creative work happening in-house, but sometimes you have to almost outsource. How does that relationship work, and how do you choose your partners in that case?
Yeah, look, I'll speak from a South African point of view. I won't speak for the whole whole world, sure. But it's very similar to what we talked about with the design earlier. Like, for us, we want when we pick local creative partners, we want partners who we want to work with, like who you'd hire as part of your team and get things done with, because it creates so much better environment, and your end product for what you get in terms of creativity is so much better when the people that you're with understand you and the journey that you're on quite well. And then, of course, you want people who are like forward thinking, cool, very creative, obviously, and South Africa's full of people like that. For us, it's about like narrowing down, just like you would any sort of business transaction, like who are the best people and how do we get the best deal, for lack of a better word, to make sure that everybody's happy at the outcome, and we're really celebrating the creativity of both H&M and of the creative company that we're working alongside. So it's not really a rocket science process, but you meet business partners along the way who just fit your company really well and the goal of whatever it is you're trying to launch, and you develop that relationship, which makes it easier and easier over time.
Of course. So, Caroline, we have a tradition here on the show where we ask our guests this particular question, and you're welcome to pick anyone from anywhere in the world to answer this question, any living person in your industry and beyond. And the question is, if you could ask any living person about their unique approach to marketing, creativity, or life, who would that person be, and what is the one question that you would ask them?
I definitely would pick a life person.
Sure.
I think. And even though I knew this question was coming, I'm having one of those moments where I'm like, whoa, who should I pick right now? I think people to me who are just like super, super inspiring. I mean, this is going to sound maybe a little cliche now because I'm in South Africa, but when it comes to a life point of view, I would love to sit in front of Nelson Mandela and just ask him, how did you get the movement? How did it come from, how did everything go from, I want to make a change to I am making the biggest change that could possibly be made, not just in my country, but in the world right now.
Sure.
Because I think there's very few people who have the capacity to actually change the world.
Sure.
Right? There's people who have the capacity to influence people or be successful in business or become billionaires or whatever. There's very few people who want to change the world for good. There's a lot of people who've changed the world for bad. Yeah. There's a lot of people, but to meet somebody like that and sit and have that discussion, I think would be an amazing, achievement. And
so I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate and ask that you almost ask someone who's alive, because for us, we'd like to see if we could get an answer to your question.
Who's alive right now? In
any industry and in any part of the world.
I have to be careful about what I say now. I can get myself in trouble. If I went with my first instinct there, I would get myself in trouble. So I won't do that. I guess I would be quite interested, right now, to speak to, someone like, I better not do that. Then see, I'm really being smart about what I say right now. Yeah, I'm skating on thin ice. I tend to put my foot in things sometimes. In the current.
In any industry, any industry, anywhere in the world.
That's what I'm thinking. This is the problem when you give someone who thinks like this a question like this. I'm like, here
you
now.
You go everywhere. Yeah.
To narrow down my focus. I guess maybe actually, if we went back to the AI question, I would be super interested to speak to, like Google or Apple or any of these guys who are leading these big industries that are about to start this new revolution, and just ask them, if they could give advice for what to do with what they've created now to the masses. What, what would they do?
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much fear around AI, and while it's extremely exciting, the fear, I think, is almost as great as the excitement, which rarely happens. I would love to speak to one of those guys and say, what would you really, really like to see with this? And what would you caution along the way? because you've created something now that will change the world. See, I'm always on these world changing things. You've created something now that will change the world. What would your advice to us be?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, we'll probably get someone from
as
Google.
Normal humans,
We'll send it and see if what someone from Google or even OpenAI would say to that.
We have a local Google office. I'm sure
we
they
do.
can.
Yeah, we do. So we also ask our guests to ask a question for our next guest. And our previous guest was Mosa Kalenga, the group CEO of the Brave Group. And I'll just share his question now so that we see if we have an answer for that. And then you can also ask a question for our next guest as well.
To your next guest, whoever you are, I'm going to punish you. So the question would be, what do you deeply believe that you are often in disagreement with many people about? So what is it that you deeply believe that most people don't agree with you on?
I truly believe, obviously I come from a different country and background, and I've lived in different places around the world. But I truly believe that despite everything that goes on in this country every day that makes people go, oh, I need to leave, or, this is terrible. And there is a lot of terrible things happening. But I truly believe that this country has the capacity to be the best country in the world. And it is around, taking some very strategic decisions around certain areas in industry to create jobs and empower people to, get out of their situation so that they can, have the next generation live better. And this is a constant debate because there's often the comment like, oh yeah, well, you're like a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, foreigner who's been here for 3 years. I think the difference is that there is no country in the world that has the same amount of like creativity, entrepreneurial spirit, ambition, gusto just to like get things done. And if we can harness that as a society towards something fantastic, this can be the greatest country in the world. With not just because it is a great country, but because it can actually be with all the data and be safer and all of these things. So that's my constant debate topic every single day. It's always an easy, even though he did punish me slightly.
No, that's great. That's great. Now, the last question to you. What's the one question that you'd ask our next guest about their work, their creative process, or their thoughts about their industry, or any industry for that matter?
I guess since I don't know who it is, my question would be, how can your industry impact making this the best country in the world? That's a simple and fair question based on my answer.
No, I think that's also punishing because now they have to think about how their industry is contributing. But it's an amazing question. Caroline, thank you so much for making the time. It was a really great conversation. And I'm sure that a lot of designers, a lot of creatives will benefit from the insights that you shared today.
Great. Thank you so much. It was so nice to speak with you.
Thank you for listening to The Lead Creative. Did you get one insight that's worth sharing from this episode? Please share it with your network or your friends. Pop me some of your ideas and innovative finds on Twitter on @Mongezi. This podcast is available on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also find me on mongezi.com.